Hey, welcome to my living room. Welcome to my home. And today I'm going to walk you through a what I eat in a day AYURVEDA edition. I'm sure a lot of you are really already interested in Ayurveda, or you wouldn't be here coming here to watch this. I've been eating an Ayurvedic diet for some time now and studying Ayurveda. I'm a long time yoga practitioner, like really since I was like 15 or 16 years old, started practicing yoga and studied to teach, and am right now studying to become a yoga therapist with the Integral Yoga Institute, who have branches in New York and in San Francisco and Virginia. I probably, like a lot of people over the course of quarantine, got completely addicted to watching these what I eat in a day videos, and I'm totally fascinated by them. So people like Whitney Simmons for sure, but really Natasha Ocean is like, I just love watching her video content. And I love watching it because it's science-based, and I am really inspired by how big a role intuition plays in her diet. I thought, when I wake up and I go about my day, I am eating so intentionally, and I'm going to walk you through what a day is like for me, what I'm actually eating. When I say an Ayurvedic diet, what does that mean to me? And I'm going to share a little bit about the principles, some of the practices about Ayurveda. I will also create a video that will be a day in the life, Dinacharya edition. And for those of you who don't know, Dinacharya is the practice in Ayurveda of daily routine. There's a lot that you'll see in this video that comes from an Ayurvedic perspective, but then there's a lot that you won't see that's going into my thinking, and then a lot that you won't see because I wouldn't eat it, because it's a kind of a food that would aggravate a person like me. So Ayurveda really believes one man's medicine is another man's poison. I've got a pretty high and hot pitta constitution. We are breaking everything up into the three doshas, and there is vata, there's pitta, and there's kapha. And chances are, if you were drawn to this video, that's not new information for you. So I'll just tell you, maybe you can tell already by my rosy cheeks, but pitta is my doshic predominance. It's the strongest dosha in my system naturally. It's what gives me a kind of driven personality, and it's what gives me my very, very regular medium size build. Like, I tend not to get too heavy, and I also tend not to get too thin. I'm typically always with a pretty muscular build, but I look somewhat toned, but I never get super toned, and I never get super fat. That's really consistent for a pitta dominant kind of a person. I've also been dealing with imbalances, and at any given time, we're all dealing with imbalances in our lives, but one of the imbalances that I've been working on is a vata imbalance, like an excess of vata being present in my day-to-day life. And that can feel like not being grounded. That can feel like forgetting things, losing your keys, losing your wallet. It can also be informed by having nightmares or headaches. Is really common if your vata dosha is too high. So I'm just giving you the lay of the land over here so you have a sense of why I'm eating what I'm eating, and we have a background together, so that, when I start to say, oh, well, vata's in excess for me, so that's why I'm eating this, or this is why I'm eating that. So let's start with what I have the very first thing in the morning. So I rise each day before 7 a.m. and I march my butt straight into the bathroom. I scrape my tongue and I get a saucepan or I get a small pot and I start to boil water. And I have warm water with lime juice every morning. So, we all have heard now that having lemon or lime juice in the morning is alkalizing for the body. And if you're like me and you have a strong pitta dosha, you want to prefer lime simply because lime is also a cooling citrus fruit. So it has a cooling principle to it, so it's not going to heat up your system in the same way that lemon will. So I have my warm water with lime, and then I get right to my cup of coffee, which I have almost every day, although, as you can imagine, coffee can be a little bit aggravating for someone who's already kind of fiery and driven. It can also be aggravating for the Vata dosha as well. And I think if you were to talk to any real serious Ayurvedic practitioner, they would strongly encourage against drinking coffee at all. Thankfully, when I was really getting into this, I worked with someone who was really into compromise. So I'm going to share a lot about the compromises that I make over the course of a day, and coffee is one of them. So I'm looking at coffee and I'm looking at if it really works for me to drink coffee, but I'm going to share with you what I put in my coffee that has coffee be not so intense on my system. So I like not a lot of coffee, but I like strong coffee. I like espresso. So I get a particular brand of coffee called Purity that is not only organic, but is also tested for mold and is a totally clean brand of coffee. So I grind it myself, and even before I make the espresso, I sprinkle a generous amount of cardamom before I brew the espresso. So I brew espresso with cardamom in it, and then when it's done and foamy and frothy, I also put cardamom on top of it. So the cardamom is a cooling spice, so that supports it supports your digestive organs when the coffee first hits your system, because coffee can actually just obliterate your digestion, but the presence of cardamom helps your digestion continue throughout the rest of the day. When I have my coffee, I also put a little bit of ghee in it, and I put a little scoop of honey, and I use straight coconut milk from a can. I think drinking anything from a can is traditionally is really not a great idea, probably by a lot of Ayurvedic practitioners' standpoints, but there aren't any additives in it. It's a great brand. I love it. I love the rich creaminess of the coconut. And what I got to when I was working with the practitioner I worked with to come up with basically the diet that I eat today, and like I said, we focused quite a bit on the compromises I was going to make. One thing we really got to is if I'm going to have the cup of coffee, it's best that it is the cup of coffee that I would most want, and that the ritual of having it every morning is about self-care and about giving myself something I really like, and that there's an element of sacredness to having that, and that it's not just something that I do where I'm checked out and I just grab the caffeine to get the caffeine into my system, but that I actually really take care that it's exactly the cup of coffee that I would want, and it really is. I have it every morning. After I have my coffee, I sit and I meditate, or because different times of the day are more closely related to different doshas, or different dosha constitutions are stronger or predominant in times of day. I structure my day in not the most usual way. So around that 8 a.m. hour, that 8 a.m. hour, I am looking to do the most rigorous mental work that I will do all day. So I'll usually sit and meditate for about 15 minutes before I dig into any computer work, but I pretty much drive straight into the computer work. And then around 9:30, I'll have a small breakfast. So this morning I had what is basically a porridge, and I have that with gluten-free breakfast cereals, the base of which is an organic brown rice farina. I chose to use something that also had cornmeal in it this morning, and I chose also to use some millet, which is really easy on my digestion. I love it. And today I mixed it up with some butternut squash. So anytime a vata imbalance is present, it's great to load up on root vegetables. It's also winter, so root vegetables are really the jam right now. And you can see I slow cooked this, or maybe you can't see because the time lapse, but I did slow cook this. I boiled up the water. I let it go. I stepped away and turned the heat all the way down, and you can do this if you're cooking. I left it for about 10 minutes just with the grains, and then I came just with the grains and the squash, and I just cooked the squash in there because I wanted it to get tender and to cook along with the grains so they'd be ready at the same time. And after about 10 minutes of letting those cook in the water, then I started to add some more interesting ingredients. So I added a generous scoop of coconut oil, salt. Today I added honey. Sometimes I will soak dates and use dates as a sweetener. I also chose to use another generous scoop of cardamom spice in this. So it kind of was with the salt and the spice and the oil and the honey, sort of like sweet and savory, very satisfying. And I also use pumpkin seeds, which gives me protein. I'm a vegetarian, so I'm always looking for where I'm going to get my protein, but it's still a cooling seed. A pumpkin seed is a cooling seed, so it gets me my protein, gets me my vitamin E, and it doesn't heat up my system too much. So that's what I had for breakfast. I cooked way too much, way too much. I just about always do, and in Ayurveda, we're really not trying to eat leftovers. Like, everything is best. And even if you try this for yourself, fresh cooked food feels better to eat almost 100% of the time. Probably 100% of the time, if we're being honest. But I just actually took the whole pot and just put it in the oven, and I'm hoping that it will keep until tomorrow, because I save food, but I don't get around to it, and I hate the idea that I'm wasting food. So anyway, in Ayurveda, we are looking to eat our biggest meal of the day before 2 p.m. So just like the sun is hottest in the middle of the day, so our digestive fires are hottest. It's like the most straightforward cheat sheet you could get. Okay, sun is hot, digestion is hot. So that time around 1 or 2 o'clock is now for me when I am trying to have my largest meal of the day. So I'm always choosing the most cooling vegetables that I can have. In this case, I picked asparagus. I love asparagus. And when I cook the asparagus, I cooked it with broccoli. I cooked it with lots of friendly digestive spices. So here's another 2 compromises that make it into this meal. So cheese can be harder on the system to digest. It can be challenging to digest. There's a lot out there about that and why that is that I'm not clear about, but it's something I've heard many times, and I know a lot of people whose digestions are really seriously impacted by cheese, because I have really strong digestion. Like I can eat a lot, but because I have really strong digestion, what cheese does is it actually binds my poop more, so I have a more solid bowel movement on a regular basis. So as long as I'm really having it in moderation, it doesn't upset my system very much. So cheese is one of the things that makes it into my biggest meal, my savory, like dinner type meal. And when I have it with a lot of pepper. I use a lot of pepper to cook it. So I'll either use the pepper in, if I'm having a grain with it, then I'll use the pepper with the grain, or if I'm having a vegetable, which is that's usually my big meal is a grain and a vegetable. But if I'm gonna have cheese, I'm really generous about the use of pepper. Pepper supports the digestion happening smoothly. So does cumin. So I used a little bit of cumin today. I also used a little bit of harissa seasoning, which I just love. But obviously spices support your digestion. Some can exacerbate it, and it can be too much, especially if you already have a hot system. But in my case today, because I was having cheese, I really threw on a lot of pepper. And this is one of my biggest compromises. If you've ever seen the forbidden rice in your health food store, they actually have a noodle version. So I don't have a lot of processed foods. I typically have like 1 or 2 forms of processed food during a day. And even though brown rice noodles it's just rice and it's just the flour and water that makes the noodle, it's still a processed food. So I try to have as few of those over the course of a day as I can. But the noodles for me it's like my compromise between, I could be eating a noodle that's got all kinds of additives in it. I'm eating a noodle with one ingredient. And I might just be tired of having regular brown rice or having a kind of grain that hasn't been processed in any way. It keeps things interesting for me. And these, the brown rice products are so yummy. They're really, really yummy. So the other thing that I do is when I cook the vegetables, I always cook the vegetables with a lot of water because it helps digest everything. It just helps everything go down smoothly. It makes it easy on my system. Part of what goes into the choices that I make when I'm choosing what to eat, it's not just about what I like, it's also about like what's going to maintain balance and regularity in my system. So I'm constantly balancing. Like I take Triphala in the evenings, but if I take too much, I will have a really unpleasant bowel movement in the morning, or I'll have a really like stingy bowel movement in the morning, if you know what I mean. And listen, there's no need to be squeamish about bowel movements. You are what you eat, accept what you poop out because you poop it out. And in Ayurveda, one of the biggest telltale signs of whether or not balance is present is your bowel movement in the morning. You'll see that over the course of a day, I'm also drinking a lot of warm water and tea. So in the afternoon today, I had an elderberry and, I don't remember what it was right now. It's a puka tea, and it's really yummy pink tea. So I'm always having herbal tea and warm water throughout the day. And in Ayurveda, we discourage having anything that's really cold, like drinking cold water throughout the day. It might seem like it feels refreshing, but just try it. With so many of these things, just try it and see how it feels. Cold water in your system constricts your system, but warm water in your system matches the temperature of your system. It absorbs easily and keeps you super hydrated. Herbal tea as well, I like to have because it just supports the regularity of all my system's functions. In the evening, when someone might typically have a dinner meal, I'm really trying this right now because I used to have my dinner at like 5 or 6 in the evening, but after a recent cleanse, that I did where I stopped eating at 2 o'clock every day, I realized that like nightmares just completely stopped. Like I didn't have, I mean, I didn't really regularly have nightmares, but I was having some very vivid dreams that were keeping me up. And I actually, when I stopped eating at 2, I actually really didn't have any dreams at all that I remembered. I just had really deep, peaceful sleep. So I'm trying this now. I'm really looking to see how I can adapt something much closer to not eating after 2 into my daily life. So today, what I had after 2, but before 7, like no question, eating is done at 7, was I just took a Hannah sweet potato and I chopped it up and I sauteed it and I added some water and some oil and I added some salt, and just very simple. I had that for the very last thing that I ate. So that's like a day in the life for me. It's really important to me to get a big serving of green vegetable in the day, and it's also really important to me to get a big serving of root vegetables. That does not look the same every day. So you saw a really straightforward day for me, but sometimes I will cook up like a vat of beet soup, or, you know, mix up my root vegetables and my green vegetables all together. And sometimes, you know, like everybody else in the world, I go out and I have somebody else cook for me. And I make different decisions when I do that than I do if I'm cooking for myself. I also have pleasures that I enjoy, like from time to time, I'll have a glass of white wine, or I'll have a cup of ice cream. And I'm definitely going to make videos that share how I go about having things like that and having it work. And like I said already, we're looking for balance for our system. That doesn't mean we never have the things that we enjoy. No way, there's no way. I couldn't stand that. There's no way. It just means that we're finding compromises that actually work. We are trying things out until we strike a balance, and we're really monitoring things like, did I sleep poorly last night because of what I ate? Did I have gas or acid reflux because of what I ate or choices that I made during the course of the day? Am I constipated? Did I have poor bowel movements based on what I ate during the day? And you know, this is the tip of an iceberg. So I just shared with you one day in my life of eating. And you know, like I said, I can eat. And this is just one day of what it looks like. So I'm definitely gonna make more of these videos. Please like it if you like it, and leave me questions in the comments. I'm so happy to respond to questions about this. I'm not an authority in Ayurveda, but I am someone who studies, who is continually expanding what I know about it, a longtime yoga practitioner, and a person who lives by this stuff. So I hope you enjoyed, and I hope that we get to stay in touch and you enjoy the future videos as well. Thanks.